And welcome back. So today we're just buttoning up some low-hanging fruit items, some cosmetic items, and making sure that we've got our ABS wheel speed sensors clipped in to where they need to go. I've went ahead and took care of the one on the driver's side, but where they clip into, that little Christmas tree clip there, where it comes off the factory harness, it actually clips onto the fender flare, or the fender cover, or the fender liner cover, whatever you want to call it. Let me get you a part number for this. Is it on this one? Thought they had a part number sticker on this thing. This may be it here. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. There's a part number for you. And this covers, at least on this case, we're going to find out, a 2009 Ram 1500 with a, on the front passenger, which is where we're at, so this is obviously just a new liner, and they don't call them fender liners or wheel liners. I think they called it a wheelhouse liner. It had an odd number, but if you look it up by the part number, you'll find it. So I'm in the process right now. Whoever removed the liner in here kind of did us a little bit of a favor, and they left the hardware in place, which is nice. And wherever the screw actually had its backing insert, its threaded insert into the liner, apparently they took it off the liner and they clipped it onto the body panel itself to hold this fender flare in place. So I don't have to go hunting for any hardware, which is nice. But I did discover, not that it's a huge issue, but you can kind of see that this side of the fender right here looks like it took a little bit of a hit because it's kind of bent outward a little bit. So I bent it back in a little bit so it's not as noticeable, but you don't really notice it until you kind of get on it. You can kind of see the little crinkle in the metal right there where it took the hit. I don't know. Like I said, it's not too terrible. It's just something to take note of, I guess. So I'm going to work on, we went ahead and took the clips out of where, you know, it's supposed to be on the liner and not on the body itself. And we're going to work on getting this liner in place. We're just letting it set in the sun for a little bit to kind of heat up and get a little bit more malleable, because it's still a little bit of cool out here this morning. But we're going to work on getting this in place, and then I'll, of course, and obviously pushing that Christmas tree clip into where it belongs, just to make sure our ABS wire stays out of the way of moving parts and, you know, doesn't get ripped to shreds again. But with that being said, we're going to get this liner in here and I'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So you can see we got a liner in, we've got it all secured down. There were a couple of screws missing that we had to go fetch some replacements for. You can definitely tell that this corner right here has been bent out a little bit because it was a little bit of a struggle to get the liner and all the fender flare, the liner, and the internal fender to all line up to get it to bolt in, but we got it. And you can see that, in my opinion, that looks a heck of a lot better than what it did with that liner missing. And in case you're curious, in case you need any of the screws that attach the fender liner in, see if we can get you a good picture of the part number there. There's your part number. And I just imagine that these screws here are probably used for quite a few years and quite a few models. So I think we had 3 of these. We had to pull 3 of these out of the package to replace ones that were missing. These were clips that we didn't need because somebody took them off the old fender liner and just attached them directly to the fender to, again, be able to, I guess, just kind of keep this piece bolted back in place. But and nevertheless, we've got that in there. We've got our ABS wire kind of clipped and out of the way. As you can see, it just clips to one of the holes there inside the liner itself. So the next thing that we're going to tackle is just going to be this wiring for our hood dome light here. This stuff is just very, very old and brittle wire loom. So we're going to get some fresh wire loom on it, get some fresh clips on here, and get this bad boy, you know, wrapped back up and clipped back in place. So that's what we'll do next, and we'll bring you back. One moment. And welcome back. So just to show you here, went ahead and got some new zip ties with the Christmas tree clips installed, and a couple of spots to fasten our wire down again. Some nice fresh loom, a little bit of fresh fabric tape, and of course now we got our light back again. And no, that's not loose. That's if you tap on it, it's just the little weight that's in there that turns it off when you close the hood. So we got that in place. We got that all buttoned up. I think the next piece that we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on getting this front radiator cover put back in. And if you remember, when we removed it, the threaded portion of these screw holes right here have been stripped out, but we got a new tool that we're going to try out for that, and I'll bring it out here shortly, and I'll show that to you. Actually, I got it right over here. Let's just do it this way. So this thing right here is what they call a Rivnut gun, and what we're going to do is that we're going to drill these holes out a little bit bigger, put an insert on them, and then use this tool to flare out and expand that insert, and then it'll leave back kind of like a threaded, an encapsulated threaded nut on the inside that we can then thread a bolt into to be able to put our grill cover back on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out a drill and go ahead and get these holes drilled out a little bit, and I'll bring you back and show you what I mean. One moment. And welcome back. So we've got our holes drilled out big enough to take our inserts, which are these. So you can see that there. So that's going to go in, and then what's going to happen is we're going to thread it on the end of this tool. This I'll put a link in the description of the kit I got, but this kit I got came with a handful of different sizes, as well as a bunch of these Rivnuts. And then once you put the right piece into the top of this threads onto there. You keep the handles together, put it in the said hole, and then you basically pull out on the bars. That will draw in the insert we're threaded into. Once I get my display to show back up here, there we go. It'll draw the bolt inward, or the nut inward, on this insert, which will flare this out and get it to basically stick into this hole permanently again. And then we'll use this knob up here to unthread this tip, and then what we should be left with is just an expanded insert that we can then use those bolts with. So I'm gonna give this a shot, and then I'll bring you back. One moment. Okay, so we got a camera operator. So hoping I can show you this in real time. So I'm just going to take this insert, thread it into the bottom of the tool, put our insert in to our pre-drilled hole. Now, then I'm going to take this adjustment screw at the top, thread it in till it doesn't thread anymore, pull it towards me, come back down, thread it in again till it tightens up again. And that's about as far as I want to push it, because it's nice and tight at that point. And I can unthread the centerpiece, which will unthread the tool from the insert. And then if we take one of our bolts over here, what we should be left with is an insert that we can thread a bolt into. So far this is pretty cool. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description to the one I bought, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'll bring you back. What we're gonna do is I'm just gonna get the front cover put back on here for the grill, and then I'll bring you back in a bit. Thank you much. Bye. And welcome back. So you can see what our inserts have done for us. They've allowed us to just thread in some standard bolts in there, which is doing a really good job of holding this. Now, Dodge have done this at least for years, at least on this particular style have done this for years, where the ones on the left and right hand side look like a really aggressive like wood screw, because they just screw in the plastic. Well, those screws were lost on this one, and I don't have replacements. So since they were already stripped out pretty good by the previous owner, I drilled them out a little bit bigger and took another one of these 1/4-inch bolts, drilled out the hole just slightly smaller than a 1/4-inch bolt, since this is soft plastic it threads into, and just had the bolt just kind of create some threads on its own to go down. Now they're in there hand tight, and I wouldn't crank on them any too much tighter than that, but that'll be, you know, as you can see, more than enough to secure it. Like I said, it won't go, you know, cinch it down tight, but you know, you've got clips on the lower left and right, and you've got these main ones in here, which are kind of your main supports. These are, you know, these are there to provide additional support, but again, it'll, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is it'll hold. So we got, as you can see, looking much better, looking like a truck again. We got our front grille in. We went ahead and put our lower splash shield, which is just a piece of rubber, and I'll show that to you. Let's see here. Grab a shop right. It's this piece right here that we took off during the disassembly. It just has Christmas tree clips that clips into the front plastic part of the bumper, and then the main brace that comes across the front, and of course a few more Christmas tree clips in the lower part of the fan shroud. So that splash plate is in. I'm taking care of the passenger liner that you saw earlier. We got our ABS wires all tucked up and out of the way. So I think the next thing that we're going to do is get the rear wheels jacked up a little bit, and then we're going to adjust our parking brakes. If you remember when we did our brake job last time, I was holding off on that, at least until we had the engine and everything else in here. So we're going to put the rear tires on some jack stands to get them off the ground, so we can spin the tires and adjust them and get them to the point where, you know, they stop fairly decently. And with that being said, I'll bring you back when we get to that piece. Talk to you in a bit. And welcome back. So we've got our emergency brake, or e-brake if you want to call it that. We got our cable adjusted a little bit. Also adjusted them using the adjusters in the back of the wheels. But when we were beginning that process, I jumped in the driver's seat, put my foot on the brake, turned the ignition on, and realized I couldn't take it out of park. And I was thinking originally that we had an issue until the wife researched it real quick, made a comment about something she found, because there actually is a recall on this model year truck right now for the shift interlock in the column. And I was thinking maybe that was coming back to bite us, even though it had worked before. So the wife found something on the internet and got me to thinking. Remember in the one of the previous videos where we discovered that the brake light switch was broken, so we replaced it with a spare that I had that we had ordered and not used. Now, interesting enough, that brake light switch broke, and that's what was our problem. Is that you could push down on the brake pedal and it was no longer engaging the brake lights. Therefore, the truck thought no one had their foot on the brake and wouldn't let you take it out of gear or take it out of park and put it in anything. Because we had the wheels jacked up independently, and we had the truck in neutral, and I was spinning the tire by hand, you know, and adjusting the star screw and the back of the emergency brake shoes. So I took the old one apart just for giggles, kind of so you could see the inside of it. And when I made a comment earlier about these switches calibrate, I was correct with this one. And at first I didn't think that it did, but it actually does. This is a switch put out by Standard, and you'll see that little tab on the back, and even this switch had it. It had it on there, and I didn't pay attention to it when it first came in because the plunger was already extended, if you remember. Now, you'll notice that one is in and locked at a 45-degree angle, and these switches do self-calibrate. So what happens is you have to install these in the wiring harness, click them in place, don't disturb the brake pedal, so that way the brake pedal stays completely up, and then you flip this lever from 45 down to parallel, so you just flip it down, and that will get this plunger to calibrate its distance with how far it needs to go out before it hits the brake pedal. So on this one, since that plunger was kind of already extended, either they didn't set it correctly from the factory, or somebody had this switch before, installed it, did the one-time calibration, and then I guess decided they didn't need it or whatever the case may be and sent it back. So I'm really thinking at this point I got sent a switch that, you know, obviously had already been used at this point, or wasn't set correctly from the factory. So according to the instructions that come with this switch, what they want you to do is, you'll see new switch must have black lever at a 45-degree angle to the connector. And you can see that the picture they want to show us there is right here. So there's the top of our connector, there's our lever, so that's kind of what we're matching. And the next thing that we want to do is connect the switch harness to the new switch. Then we'll align the lock tabs underneath, which are the front ones here. Give it a turn. This will lock it into the bracket underneath. And then once we have it locked in, it says, without disturbing the brake pedal, move the black adjustment lever clockwise to adjust the switch. The lever should be parallel to the connector. So when we're underneath and we have this in, we're just going to take this lever here and flip it down. And that should take care of our adjustment. So I'm going to get you, I'm going to try to show you what I'm doing here when I do it. But I'm going to get the harness installed and get this clicked into its bracket. I'll bring you right back. And welcome back. So I got you up in here. We've got the wiring harness attached to our switch. We've got our switch clipped back into our bracket, and we make sure that we got our brake pedal up. We're not going to disturb our brake pedal. And then we're going to take that lever there, and then we're going to flip it. Well, I'm going to try. There we go. So there you go. It's now parallel. Not sure how good that came out in camera. So that's the deal. So hook up your wiring harness, clip the switch into the bracket, and then flip that lever down. And it should calibrate internally with the distance. And then hopefully now our brake light switch works like a brake light switch. Okay, so let me do this. Let me grab a fob. Yeah, let me go grab a fob and I'll bring it right back and we'll give this a shot. One moment. Okay, welcome back. Forgive the dinging. I've got the key and accessory, obviously, in the driver's door open. But if you look at the reflection and the headlights of the black truck, you may be able to see that we have brake lights. And now we should be able to climb up in here, put our foot in the brake and put it in neutral, take it out of park. Oh, beautiful, look at that. And welcome back. So I was just looking into these map lights now that we've got our brake light switch sorted out at this point. And what we discovered was that these two little switches were actually laying up in here just unplugged. I think we figured out the reason why is that these should click. So as you actuate them, they should click on, click off, click on, click off. And they don't. They just, you know, stay on all the time. So obviously both of them are wore out. And that's the reason why these buttons wouldn't push in, because it looks like it requires the spring actuator in this to actually actuate that. And as you can see, they don't click anymore. And like I said, I'll look them up and see if you can get these actual switches independently. Somehow I doubt it. Somehow I think they're going to try to sell you this whole module. But for now, what I'm going to do, just to keep the map lights from you know, coming on and staying on all the time, rather than just leave these loose lying up in here. I'm just going to leave them there on the dash. And if we can get new switches, fine, so be it. If not, it just means it won't have map lights in this vehicle, at least until this whole centerpiece can be found, or maybe we can get those, you know, working switches out of a junkyard unit or something. And like I said, unless I can find replacements online, that's a nice thing about a common problem. If that's a common problem, I'm sure somebody out there has a fix for it. And that brake light switch that we used, there's the number for you there. It's just a standard because the auto parts store had it, and they had it today rather than just happen to order one. So SLS 237. So at this point in time, I think we've chased all the gremlins on this thing that we can chase. We've buttoned up everything that we can button up. Brakes have been buttoned up. The front liner that you saw us installing earlier, the front grille. Like I said, we did take a quick look at this piece, and we went ahead and also took care of the emergency brakes while we are at it. So I think at this point in time, oh, and I forgot to tell you, the gas gauge does work. We didn't have to drop the tank. We didn't have to change the pump out. The issue with the tank was just that plane just didn't have enough fuel in it. That and the kind of slight downward angle that this truck still has in it, because the way they've got the suspension set up on this truck, it still kind of pitches the nose up in the air a little bit, so the nose is higher than the rear, even with the engine in it. And we just went and got a couple extra gallons of gas, dropped it in the tank, and I watched it on the scan tool, because you can pull the pit up for the percentage, for the voltage reference coming out of the tank, as well as the percentage of fuel. And as we added 2 gallons of fuel, we went from like 3% to 7%, and this needle finally moved up to the E, just right on the E instead of below it. So that tells me that's working. So at this point in time, I think what we're going to do is refill the air in the back tire and get that situated. And with that being situated, turn around and see if we can take it maybe for a little bit of drive around the block, see how the transmission and all is going to function and fare. We just need to get a license plate on it and get the registration and glove box, and then we can give that a shot. But with that being said, I'm going to call the one last item that we do need to take care of, because I keep forgetting it. Is going to be our windshield washer hose. I'm just gonna fix this with a little brass barb. What we had to do, you'll notice when we took the hood off, we were able to obviously take the dome light off over there because it was just an electrical connection. But this sprayer hose is kind of molded up underneath this hood and clips into here, and it transitions and becomes like the main part of the wiring harness, and goes into this little sleeve here and snakes down and around and finally hooks up to the washer bottle. So it was kind of hard to get to. So right here where it transitions from rubber to hard plastic tubing is where I just made the election to cut it. You can see it there. I'm just going to put a barb back in to fit that. Again, we were just trying to get this hood off in a hurry, and that was the easiest way to take care of this and just get this line off without trying to, as you can see, it goes behind all of this and then goes up to the washer jug, or it would have meant trying to take all these clips out, get this piece of felt off, and seeing if it could be unclipped there. So it was easy. It was a rubber hose. It was just easy to unclip it from here. And like I said, we can fix that with a barb. It's just windshield washer spraying fluid. It's not coming out under that great amount of pressure. So that being said, I'm going to clean everything up, work on getting the rear license plate on so we can make it legal to drive on the street, and then I'll bring you back and let you know how it goes. Thank you much. Bye. So I just want to show you this real quick. Again, just kind of utilizing that Rivnut tool we saw earlier. It makes fairly nice inserts in the plastic as well for being able to mount your license plate. Again, just using some more 1/4-inch stainless steel bolts with some lock washers. And there we go. can actually feel the back of these and feel kind of how it expands and locks in, but that should do nicely. Actually, like I said, I'm liking this thing. Okay, well, let me go get some more hardware and I'll bring you back. Thank you much. And welcome back. So we got everything buttoned up at this point. We put the battery hold down on with the battery hold down bolt. An interesting point about the battery hold down and the battery hold down bolt, I ordered both of those for 2012 because I couldn't find a listing for 2009, and they both fit just fine. The only other issue that we ran into so far while just checking lights was that the wife noticed the third eye brake light in the back wasn't working, and that's its backup bulb. Needless to say, that's a little blown, a little bad. What we ended up doing, and this is the old assembly here, that's the old light bar in the back, the old third eye brake light, cyclops light, whatever you want to call it. If you remember when we did our 2016, I ordered a one in that was painted black around the border from the factory. It's a factory option. I just ordered an extra light, but I ordered it thinking that it was an LED assembly, and it wasn't. If you remember, it was all incandescent bulbs, and so I wasn't going to use it on the truck. Well, since that one had a good water seal on it, I decided to test fit it. It's the exact same piece. So a third eye slash cargo light from a 2016 2500 fits a 2009 1500. So go figure. Like I said, lined up, screws and everything fit. I went ahead and just put that one on it again. It's all incandescent. It all works now. The nice thing is it's got a brand new, nice water seal on it. So we're just going to go ahead and just leave that entire assembly on it. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and, like you said, wrap this one up. Like I said, that is all the little bits and pieces that we had going on at this point. We did test roll it forward and backward a couple of times in the driveway, and so far the transmission at least is working that much. We're prepping to go ahead and take it on a little bit longer of a stroll, and I'll bring you back and kind of let you know how that goes. Other than that, I'll end the video at this point, and I will ask that if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. Again, it does help channel growth. And with that being said, I will let you go, and I'll bring you back for the next one. Thank you much. Bye. And welcome back. So we just got done doing a quick run, couple laps around the neighborhood. Nothing crazy, all low speed. And I'm happy to say, so far, no error messages, no dings, no warning lights, no check engines, no ABS issues, no traction control issues, no shifting issues, no runnability issues. So far, everything within that short run was fine. Don't worry, I will bring you along and make another video when we do a much larger run. So like I said, everything that we know that we can button up on this has been buttoned up, with the exception of the interior map lights, and those are just some switches that we need to see if we can source. If we can't source those little switches, then we'll just see if we can pull them out of a junkyard unit rather than having to buy the whole assembly, but it's relatively minor. We know that we got to get this to a tire shop to address the slow leak that we have in the driver's side rear tire here. While they have it, I want to see if they can just, again, balance the rims, check the health of them, and also maybe check the alignment on it. The steering wheel's fine. The steering wheel's got a little bit more slop in it than I like, but like I said, it's not critical, but if they can tighten it up, that'd be great. So no issues with the brakes. Did a bunch of low speed stopping to help varnish in those new brake pads that we put on all the way around. Again, no issues. We went through the interior and checked all the knobs, dials, and switches, and so far they're all doing what they're supposed to be doing. The blend door recirculate and blend door actuators go between hot and cold are doing what they should be doing. We also tested the drinker ejection window in the rear. That is a powered sliding window that also works just fine with no issue. So at this point, we've got the major items taken care of. Now there is one item that you saw that we had supplies for in a previous video. That we haven't done yet, and that's because I'm waiting to get in contact with a transmission specialist that my friend gave me the name, number, and contact information for. It's kind of an urban legend at this point, and it's all over the forums, and it goes from yes, do it, to no, absolutely not, don't do it. And that is to do a fluid and filter change on a high mileage transmission, which you don't know the history of. A lot of people say that if the fluid's dark and if you don't know it's ever been done, then don't do it, because if you do it, then it means you're going to have problems. But generally, those individuals that have problems after doing it generally means they were having problems before they did it, and the fluid change was an attempt to fix it, if that makes sense. Now, if I get in contact with him and he says, yep, you should be perfectly fine, provided it's shifting okay, which our small test drive did validate that, you know, we're at least getting into third gear without an issue. If he says, go ahead and do it, I'll bring it back, we'll make a video of it and we'll do it. If he comes back with any type of caution and says if it's working, leave well enough alone, then we'll just check the fluid level and leave well enough alone. The rear transfer case, I should say the transfer case, as you saw in a previous video, does have a slight seep to it. It's nothing major. It's not a catastrophic leak. I did pop the fill plug on that, and it is just a scooch low in fluid, but it is almost at the fill level, so it is a very, very small seep at this point. I'm going to leave it as a small seep. It's doing what it needs to be doing. It's working. Like I said, it's not a major leak. It just, at least at this point in time, doesn't warrant dropping the transfer case and having it completely serviced. If the leak gets worse or if the transfer case starts to fail, then absolutely we'll get it done at that point. But for now, we'll just top it off with fluid. Like I said, unless the transmission guy comes back and says, okay, you're good to go, then we'll do a complete fluid change on it when the same time that we do the transmission. So with that being said, like I said, tomorrow we'll get this bad boy out a little bit more on the road, knock some more of the cobwebs off, and we'll see where we go to from there. But for now, we're good. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. It does help the channel out immensely. And with that, I shall let you go. Thank you much. Bye. And actually, like I said, good news. Running and driving. Sorry, wanted to mention that. It arrived from the auction on a flatbed, completely immobile, unable to start, unable to move under its own power. And now, for the first time in X number of months, it made a couple of successful trips around the neighborhood. So progress is progress. And with that, I shall let you go, and I'll talk to you in a bit. Thank you much. Bye.